Hi Archers! Patch 1.4.3 is released to all players. If you do not have the update yet, then please check your app store and manually update it. With the new update, 2 new rings have been added into the game. In this video, I'll be showing you an updated ring tier list based on numbers I've ran, and from that, I've placed them from weakest to strongest. My name is Teeds. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more ARCHERO videos. A disclaimer, this is based on my research, opinion, and playstyle. You may not agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. Always adjust to your situation and individual playstyle. Tier lists can always change depending on what chapter you're on, hero you're using, and what you need. This is just a general tier list as a guideline. With that noted, let's begin. All rings will be compared in their epic rarity. This includes their damage effect, their personal stat obtained at rare rarity, and their additional epic stat. All rings except for the new lion ring has an epic stat of plus 10% coins from battle, which just means additional coins. So, in 6th place, unfortunately the last place, as the worst ring is the bear ring. The bear ring grants increased damage to all ground units. This includes ranged, melee, and boss monsters who are, ground. At rare, you'll gain an extra stat of plus 5% max HP. So in comparison to the other rings, max plus 5% HP is not the best stat to have from a ring. HP boosts are one of the more common ability drops, and 5% is not that much. Depending on what your base health is, at least in the later chapters, 2 bear rings pretty much just lets you take 1 more hit. In 5th place, we have the Falcon ring. Falcon ring deals increased damage to airborne units. This includes range, melee, and boss who are airborne. The rare stat is plus 5% attack speed. This ring very much depends on individual playstyle. Some players value attack speed and some do not. I am someone who does stutter step in my games, and because I make use of this mechanic, I do not rely on attack speed as much. But if you're someone who does not stutter step, attack speed rings might be better fit for you. Having 2 Falcon rings will grant you a total of plus 10% additional attack speed. In 4th and 3rd place is the Serpent ring and the Wolf ring. Sometimes I get comments asking if they should go for the Serpent ring or the Wolf ring. These 2 rings, in my opinion, were the best rings before the 2 new ones came out. But Serpent ring versus Wolf ring shouldn't be a thing. It is not comparable. Serpent rings grant increased damage to ranged units. Wolf rings grant increased damage to melee units. And as an additional note, these 2 rings do not apply additional damage to any of the bosses. It's only to mobs, and I'm not sure if this is a bug or intentional. With this stat alone, it depends. If you're someone who doesn't use a weapon with a strong knockback, this means you'll rely on your damage since you do not have any initial crowd control. You'll benefit more from the increased melee damage since melee would be your weakness. You do not have to rely on the rings for this, but you will have to reposition more. If you're someone who uses a weapon with a knockback, then you'll have an easier time against melee monsters. So for you, it's more preference. Most of us are not choosing these rings for the bonus damage anyway, but I put it out there just in case it makes a difference for you or you consider these stats. Serpent ring grants you plus 7% dodge. Equipping 2 Serpent rings do not grant plus 14% dodge, as it is not additive. But this doesn't make it bad. Wolf ring grants you plus 5% crit chance, so 2 wolf rings would grant you plus 10% crit chance. Crit chance and crit damage are apparently additive, confirmed by a memory scanner from a Reddit user. Then comes the question, crit chance versus dodge. As I said earlier, it is not comparable. Crit chance is basically damage. It increases your chances of dealing more damage. Dodge is more of a defensive stat. Now it is damage versus defense. This is why it's not comparable. It's just purely on what you prefer or what you need. Dodge is basically survivability, while crit chance is just damaging enemies faster. The only time these 2 rings would be comparable is if one of them had a huge unbalanced increase in stats over the other. Now we have 2 rings left. Huge thanks to Alex85_U and Miriam from Discord for the screenshots, as I do not have the rings yet at Epic. Now in 2nd place is the all new Bull ring. The new Bull ring grants increased damage to all mob types. Its rare stat is plus 10% damage resistance. This is a defense ring. In comparison to the Serpent rings, which is again defense, I find that the Bull ring is more powerful than the Serpent ring. So for those who want to go a defense route, Bull rings over Serpent rings, in my opinion, is the way to go. Equipping 2 Bull rings grant you plus 20% damage resistance to all types of damage, and the damage to all mob types is incredibly useful too. However, do note this does not work on bosses. For farming, this ring is also the best ring to use. Now in first place, we have the all new Lion ring. This Lion ring surprised me. The Lion ring deals increased damage to all boss types. For me personally, when I am stuck in a chapter or I'm struggling, it's mostly with a boss and rarely with a mob. This stat is incredibly helpful, and not only that, it works amazing for boss-only chapters such as Chapter 7 and Chapter 10. The rest stat is plus 20%. Yes, plus 20% increased crit damage. Equipping 2 Lion rings will grant you a total of plus 40% crit damage. Because of this, it is more comparable to the Wolf ring. I calculated that 40% crit damage is more powerful than plus 10% crit chance. Of course, you can always mix and match your rings as well, but I would not pass on double Lion rings. And it doesn't end there. Each Lion ring will also grant you plus 5% attack as the epic stat. Together, that is an extra 10%. A straight 10% attack increase right off the bat, which also again increases your crit damage. The more attack you have, the more crit damage you'll have, as it is based off your attack damage. The Lion ring also synergizes better with high tier abilities, such as Attack Boost, Crit Master, and Crit Plus. I also came across this on Reddit. As this is a repost, I do not know who the original poster is. This is not my character or my game. For these images, we're going to focus on the rings he has equipped. In the first image, he has one level 1 ancient legendary wolf ring. We're going to say AL for short instead of ancient legendary. The other is a level 60 AL serpent ring. If you do not know what ancient legendary is, it is a new rarity. It is above legendary. It only takes 2 legendaries to make one, and they don't even have to be the same item. It just has to be the same type. And there are no new stats, unfortunately, so it just adds levels to your item. With these 2 equipped, his base damage is 4,707. Now look at the second image. He has now equipped one level 1 AL Wolf ring and one level 40 Epic Lion ring. So he went from a level 60 AL Serpent ring to a level 40 Epic Lion ring. His damage is now 4,898. In the last image, he has 2 Epic Lion rings, a level 1 and level 40. His damage is now at its highest at 5,089. Equipping 2 rings, 2 rarities down, not only show that ancient legendary needs to be improved, but also shows how powerful the Lion rings are damage-wise. Because of this, I have placed Lion ring as the optimal ring of choice. It's so powerful that I would choose this over dodge ring builds, even though the dodge rings are defense and Lion rings are damage, but this is when it becomes more comparable. When the damage just blows everything out of the ballpark. It's very powerful right now that I believe the Wolf and Serpent ring meta is probably not a thing now. It's probably over. Again, this still comes down to personal preference. Always use what you enjoy and suits your playstyle the most. But if you're looking for a huge increase in damage that pairs up well with attack boost and crit boost and even more abilities, Lion ring would be the best way to go. I would recommend picking up dodge and agility if you can in your runs to provide dodge chance and more defense. That is my recommendation. That way you can have a lot of damage and high survivability. There is one con to the Lion ring though, and that is it is not a good farming ring. If you're farming coins, it does take away the plus 10% coin from battle. It is the only ring without that stat. Coins I find are really important. I always find myself broke in ARCHERO nowadays. If you're farming coins, I recommend any 2 of the other epic rings, especially if you're going into the Up Close Dangers event for coin farming. These rings have just came out though, but with the new release of the rings, they have increased the drop rate for these rings, so I've heard, and they also have a 3 times increased drop rate chance event for chests as well. With that news, I have been farming for these rings. At the moment, I do not know what the best place is to farm as of yet, like officially, but I have just been farming chapter 10, and so far I've been getting the rings once every second run, which is pretty neat. If you can't farm chapter 10, I recommend just trying 3 or 6. That is all for today's video. Let me know what you think about the new rings introduced into ARCHERO. And with that, I thank you very much for watching. Subscribe and click the bell for more ARCHERO. Like the video if you're going to switch to the lion rings. I hope to see you again for the next one. Bye!